held Colorado hitless in the first 7 innings. Things are not looking good for the UCLA football program and head coach Deshaun Foster. UCLA is 0-2 after losing to Utah and UNLV by a combined score of 73-33. The Bruins trailed Utah 20-0 before losing 43-10. They were down 23-0 at UNLV before losing 30-23. Foster needs to do something about the Bruins' slow starts. These are the kind of mental notes an athletic director or a school president make when evaluating coaches. UCLA is at home Friday night against New Mexico. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, 2 conversations. Up first, the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, confirms that plans to expand ICE operations in Chicago are now officially underway. On the top side of our 2, we'll speak with Tenny Gross, founder and CEO of the Institute for Nonviolence Chicago, about why and how Chicago has experienced its lowest summer murder rate since 1965. Never mind what the Trump administration is doing. Lowest murder rate in the summer since 1965, and we'll talk about what all that has to do with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Stick around for that conversation in our second hour. On the B side of our 2, best-selling author Kosako Jackson on his adult fantasy debut, The Macabre. The novel melds horror, fantasy, and art history into a captivating story about 10 cursed paintings and the lengths to which people will go to collect them, destroy them, or be destroyed in the process. Author Kosako Jackson on the backside of hour 2. In our third hour, a conversation with Tara Roberts, National Geographic explorer and author of the memoir Written in the Waters, a memoir in history, home, and belonging. In the book, Tara dives into her work locating the wrecks of slave ships around the globe. A great conversation I look forward to with Tara Roberts today in our third and final hour. But in this first hour, let's talk politics with USA Today columnist and my radio colleague, John Wood Jr. John, good to see you. How are you, sir?
Brother Tavis, it is good to see you and always good to speak to the KBLA family, man. I am well.
Glad to have you on the program today. Let me, Miles, I want to play this clip of Donald Trump. I should have told you earlier, my bad on that. This is a clip of Donald Trump talking about the jobs report. He's being asked by a reporter whether or not he's going to believe the numbers when they come out. You'll recall a few weeks ago, Donald Trump fired the person running the Bureau of Labor Statistics because he didn't like their data. So they lost their job because he didn't like their numbers. So he was asked by a reporter whether or not when the new job numbers came out, he was prepared to believe the actual numbers. You ready, Miles? Here we go. Take a listen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tomorrow we have a jobs report coming out, the first since the BLS commissioner who you fired won't be there. A lot of people will be turning to you to see if you believe the data that's released. Can you commit to saying the data will be credible?
The number, I don't know, they come out tomorrow, but the real numbers that I'm talking about are going to be whatever it is, but will be in a year from now when these monstrous, huge, beautiful places, they're palaces of genius, and when they start opening up, you're seeing, I think you'll see job numbers that are going to be absolutely incredible. Right now it's a lot of construction numbers, but you're going to see job numbers like our country has never seen before. Thank you very much.
So Trump was saying there, as you heard, that the real numbers he believes are going to come out about a year from now. And we'll see what those numbers say. Well, those numbers are out. They're out today, in fact. And here's the irony of this storyline for me. Donald Trump fired the person, again, running the Labor Statistics Bureau because he didn't like their data. Presumably, one would think that he wanted those numbers to be better, and better in the sense that unemployment was lower, that we'd added more jobs. That's what he's aiming for, right? He wants numbers that suggest that under his administration, we've added more jobs, the unemployment numbers are lower, so the numbers didn't really quite meet his standards. Well, take a listen to this. Just out today, the U.S. economy added 911,000 fewer jobs than previously reported in the largest ever revision in history. Employers added far fewer jobs in 24 and early 25 than previously thought, indicating that the labor market has been significantly weaker than the estimates that had been suggested. So Donald Trump got what he wanted. He got a revision of the numbers, but they were revised downward, not upward. So the numbers are going in the wrong direction. But it's in some ways mind-boggling. I guess I'm not an economist, but for this to be the largest ever revision around the time that Donald Trump is questioning what the numbers are, let's give him, a little bit of play. He was on to something, raising a concern about these numbers. He just didn't know they were going to be as bad as they are. The U.S. economy, I repeat, has added 911,000 fewer jobs than previously reported, and it is the largest ever revision for a jobs report in the history of the Republic, at least as long as we've been tracking these numbers. There's that. Then, as I mentioned earlier, Trump has announced, his administration has announced that this crackdown on immigration in Chicago has already begun now in earnest. And you saw the news yesterday that the Supreme Court has lifted restrictions here in Los Angeles with regard to these immigration raids. It's another win for Donald Trump. The conservative majority lifts the restraining order from a judge who found roving patrols were conducting indiscriminate arrests. So now these roving patrols and these indiscriminate arrests can continue. I digress on that for now. That and a great deal more to cover in this first hour with our guest John Wood Jr. when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on! Let's go!
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You've still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. It's the Sleep Number biggest sale of the year. All beds on sale up to 50% off the limited edition smart bed. Plus free premium delivery with any smart bed and adjustable base. Ends Labor Day. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind: to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my 2 sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted timeshare cancellation company in the United States. Fortune magazine even recognized us as one of the best places to work. Why? Because we genuinely care. In fact, some of our former clients were so moved by their experience working with us, they joined our team so they could help others to timeshare freedom. If you're stuck in a timeshare, give us a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-687-7979. That's 800-687-7979. 800-687-7979.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and John Wood Jr. I was saying to John just a moment ago during the break that I feel like this is a Jeopardy game, and he can choose from the board what he will. There's just so many things to choose from, but I'm going to choose for you at least to get started.
Okay.
Since I went first with this jobs report.
Yeah.
So again, in case you just tuned in, Donald Trump has said he's been waiting on the real jobs numbers, and they revise these things. This is not atypical. The Labor Department puts these numbers out, and it is always the case. They come back and look at them again and try to get the numbers to be a bit more accurate. What's stunning about this one is that it is the largest ever recorded revision. The U.S. economy, once again, has added 911,000 fewer jobs than previously reported. How's Donald Trump going to spend this, John Wood Jr.?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, there's a lot going on here. I mean, you took us back to the context of Trump relieving one of the Bureau of Labor Statistic commissioners of their position because they had revised the figures downward in a way that made his economy look weaker than he wanted it to look. Right, and of course, one of the things that happens against the backdrop of is a pretty well established pattern of President Trump of not responding well to bad news, even when it comes from his own people. I mean, you can go all the way back to his first term, the way he came down on the FBI, or rather the CIA, for saying that Russia was interfering with the election, throwing them under the bus in front of Putin. One of my favorites was when the National Weather Service contradicted something he said about where a tornado or a hurricane was landing in Florida, and in an official map that he put up in a press conference to indicate the trajectory of that hurricane, he actually took a black Sharpie marker and changed the route to correspond to the mistake that he had made. So, Donald Trump has a history of doing those sorts of things. What's interesting about the BLM commissioner that was relieved is that that's just a position that it's almost unprecedented that a president has ever relieved an individual like that. So now, with that person gone, you're still seeing these downward revisions in the numbers. So that begs the question, well, what is Donald Trump going to do now? Now, there is some context to keep in mind here, though. Truth be told, I'm not sure that President Trump is going to be altogether unhappy about this report, because really about 9 or 10 out of the 12 months that are being cited here were under the Biden administration.
So there's the spin. The spin is, it ain't my fault.
Well, right.
These are Joe Biden's numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He's able to look at that and say, well, mostly this shows that Biden was weak, and we're having to make up for him. So I would anticipate that that's the way in which they're going to talk about this. And I think it's also the case that Trump has nominated somebody to replace that previous commissioner, but that person is not in office yet. So the person who's currently presiding over this process is an interim figure. But even the previous figure wasn't the person actually making the calls and conducting the surveys and so forth. I mean, you've got a large governmental department that calculates these numbers based on survey responses that, for all sorts of reasons, the evolution of technology, et cetera, it's harder and harder, I think, to get accurate information on this front anyway. But it does, even if you're just talking about the first 2 months of the Trump administration, it does contribute to an overall environment in which you got the tariffs that are ramping up. You've got profit margins that are getting thinner and thinner. You've got all the layoffs from the federal government. Donald Trump was elected on the strength, in part, on the strength of the idea that he was going to be a champion for the economic interests of the American people. But if you look at polls, I think he's polling weaker on the question of the economy than he is on almost any other subject, right? So it is something that's unfolding in the sore area for Donald Trump.
What do you make of that? I've made this point more times than I can count, that Donald Trump, the data tell us, was elected to the very point you just made because people thought he'd be a far better steward of the economy than Kamala Harris. And nothing could be truer. I don't know what Kamala would be doing or might be doing right about now with regard to the economy, but it's hard to imagine things being, much worse than they are. His threats against Jerome Powell notwithstanding, we're adding fewer jobs. Now, again, all this report, you're right, doesn't rest on his shoulders, but the numbers during this 8 months, 7, 8 months, whatever it is he's been there now, those numbers aren't good either. So, there's only so much, he can blame Joe Biden for these numbers, given that since he's been there, we've had a number of jobs reports, and those numbers aren't altogether, good either. So my question here is, the spin Donald Trump's going to put on this, I get. But we elected him, the country elected him, because we thought he'd be better on the economy. At some point, that has to catch up with him, does it not? If things don't turn.
So I mean, Tavis, give me a second to collect my thoughts here, because we are used to talking about these questions in conventional political terms. I'm just not sure that we're looking at a conventional political
I grant
figure,
you that.
right?
I grant you that.
So, yes, I mean, on the one hand, you would be inclined to say that, well, he's got to make a shift in policy, or at least messaging, to counteract the reality of a softer economy than most people would want to see. Now, a lot of this comes down to the tariffs, right? Trump didn't engage in this type of tariff warfare in his first administration. So it's a huge gamble. And if it doesn't pay off, people are going to be upset. But the thing to understand about the tariff policies is that, as with so many other things that the Trump administration is engaged in, it is him exerting muscle, in this case on the global order. Right? This is Trump, in a sense, sort of breaking NATO, breaking countries in Asia and elsewhere, Latin America, all around the world, to try and assert a sort of American dominance over folks. And if that hurts him at the polls domestically, we have a gerrymandering strategy in Texas and in other Republican states across the country to try and set things up so that Republicans have a structured sort of advantage going into the midterms. And I say this as a Republican myself. It doesn't seem to me that Trump is thinking so much in terms of what is going to poll well, so much as in terms of what is going to allow him and the administration to maintain a raw hold on power and authority nationally and internationally. And so it's a little bit of a different way of thinking when you're not fully concerned with the response of the electorate, right? It's almost as if they're grabbing for a level of power that might make the will of the electorate relatively irrelevant, right? As we go forward.
Let me extend the point you're making. I've not had this conversation with anybody else, but to leave it to John Wood Jr. to pull this out of me, because I think he's onto something. I am not so sure that in this particular term, Donald Trump cares as much now as he did then about poll numbers in the first place.
Because he's not going to be.
He can't run for office again. I mean, we know that. I'm laughing you for all the obvious reasons, right? We think that he can't run again.
Although he said that people are saying. Remember, he said people are saying you can do it. I'm not saying you can do it, but people are saying you can do it.
So we'll have that fight when we get there. But constitutionally, we know that Donald Trump cannot run another term. Again, we'll put a pin in that for the time being. Who knows what he'll attempt to do a few years from now. But the point is, he can't run another term. And I just think there's something far bigger that he's after. And you look at all the stuff he's doing on any given day. To your point, earlier, you can't even keep up with all this stuff, right? That Steve Bannon theory of flooding the zone is working. They're flooding the zone every single day with stuff. And he is drawing, as I've said countless times on this program, he's pulling more and more power to the executive branch than anything we've ever seen in history. And as I've also said before, you can trust and believe that whoever comes behind him, Republican or Democrat, is not going to give that power back. So the executive branch is becoming all the more powerful. Right. So Donald Trump is running the playbook that he wants to run. And frankly, let me just back up. It's not even the playbook he wants to run. Donald Trump, to my mind, is a conduit. He's not an ideologue. He's running the playbook that all the folk around him want him to enact. You would never convince me that Donald Trump is laying awake in the middle of the night thinking of, ideas like, let's change the Department of Defense to the Department of War. A lot of somebodies around him are coming up with these ideas. We saw it initially in Project 2025, and they're running these ideas through Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is about running his plays. He's already the president. He's not going to run again, and I don't think these poll numbers impact him. So, again, we can cite poll numbers all day long, how his numbers are softening. I'm not so sure, to your point, given that this is not a conventional presidency, that really matters to him the way it would to somebody else who wants to run a second term or who doesn't have the sort of strategy that he has of just being a bull in a china shop.
Yeah, and I don't even think that Donald Trump really has the sort of loyalty to the long-term interests of even the Republican Party that other party nominees and presidents have had. I mean, I feel like Trump's relationship to the party is as an extension of his own presence and powers, as I sort of think his relationship to the country, broadly speaking, is. But to your point, though, about Trump not being an ideologue, I mean, generically speaking, no president is really an individual. Every president is an institution baked within a network of relationships and influences and so on and so forth. I think that I would go about 50% with you. I would take Elon Musk as sort of an example here. To the degree to which Elon Musk and the Doge agenda wasn't really getting in Trump's way and was advancing certain political talking points, Trump was all for it. At a certain point, I think part of what happened with Musk and Doge, and Ezra Klein actually sort of made some reference to this, is that Doge, in its wild cuts, at first they were cutting out members of the federal government that, the people in the bureaucracy who are politically anathema, who are opposed to Donald Trump. But at a certain point, they're starting to cut into Rubio's State Department. At a certain point, they're starting to cut into, the bastions of influence that are now run by Trump's own people. And I think that at that point, Trump probably stops and thinks, okay, well, this is doing a little bit more harm than good. And suddenly, I'm not saying that's the only reason he fell out with Musk, but I think that it's a little bit of a factor. People are trying to run plays through Donald Trump, and Donald Trump, I think, is available to that, so long as it facilitates his own presence and power in the country, broadly speaking, and his own vision of a great America. And I think Trump's vision of a great America is something that feels a little bit more imperial. I mean, I don't want to overstate it, but imperial just in the sense that power amassed to a national identity that is not principally concerned with civil liberties, not principally concerned with sort of, balancing the diversity of the constituency of interests of American democracy, so much as it is about raw wealth, raw military presence, and the capacity to bend the nations of the global community and the domestic constituencies to the will of the executive, right? I think Trump has a vision of national grandeur which is quite distinct from what has been exhibited by Democratic and Republican presidents in the past. And I think he's trying to sort of preserve this structure in a way that will outlive his two terms in office.
You're starting to answer this now, and let me just go there more expressly. If Donald Trump doesn't care about the poll numbers, broadly speaking, then what does he care about? Is this just about raw power? Is it just about the big grift? I was just reading a story yesterday about how he has already, since January, doubled his wealth. He's doubled his wealth since January when he returned to the White House. So is it just about the big grift? Is it just about raw power? If he doesn't care about the numbers and he can't run again and they're flooding the zone with all this stuff, what's the end and aim here? What does he care about? What matters to him?
Yeah.
As you see it.
Well, here's and we're all speaking about it. I mean, maybe, I've never asked you. Maybe have you met Trump in the past?
A number of times.
Right,
Yeah.
Exactly.
So sat next to him for one long night. There was a roast. There was a roast one year in New York City. I met him a few times, but there was a roast one night for my friend Larry King, the late great Larry King.
Yeah, of course.
And I was on the dais for this roast, and he and I were seated next to each other. So it was a 3-hour night of chit chatting with Donald Trump at the roast.
So you've had a conversation with him. I never have.
Yeah.
But I'll answer the question from my vantage point. But there's two things that are important here. Let me just say, I've never been a person who hated Donald Trump myself, because from my vantage point, Donald Trump is a person born to extraordinary power, extraordinary privilege, and he's a guy who likes playing with toys and who likes being, the biggest, swinging, what in the room. That's how he has lived his life. And I think that that's carried into his vision of an American glory is a vision of the personal glory of Donald Trump. And you would expect a person who grew up in the way that he grew up to maybe be sort of like that. And so for him, bigger is always better. You got the White House. It doesn't have enough gold in it. Let's get everything laminated. And, he wants to live life like a baron or an aristocrat of old in the modern age. So that's just what I see Trump as wanting. Man wants to go higher and higher all the time. But what gets baked in underneath Trump, I think, is a vision of America that comes from a more ideological perspective. And again, there's many different angles to this, but one angle is a vision of America that is not particularly concerned with sort of democratic pluralism as a foundational ethos. A vision of America that may see itself as rooted in a Christian heritage. And look, I believe in a Christian nation myself, but I believe in a Christian nation which is rooted in the transcendent love of the gospel. But we do have versions of Christianity that are more anchored to sort of specific sorts of visions of sort of Anglo-Saxon cultural identity and so on and so forth, which may or may not leave much room for everybody else. Right?
I wouldn't call that a version of Christianity. I would call that anti-Christianity. It's not even a version of it.
Well, it's interesting because, when you talk about Christianity, are we talking about the way of Christ or are we talking about a religion of men, right? And when you talk about a religion of men, it's funny because there's all sorts of ways in which the religion of men can actually be opposed to the Spirit of God.
No question.
So that takes us into the realm of theology. But this just goes to your point. I think that as Trump sort of pursues his own personal glory and glorification, a lot of other perspectives hitch a ride on that wagon, right? Yep. And so we're seeing the confluence of many things.
A lot more to cover in this conversation with John Wood Jr. You never know where these dialogues are going to take us, but I find this a dialogue fascinating about what's animating Donald Trump, what's driving Donald Trump, what's he really care about beyond getting his face up on Mount Rushmore. What does he really care about? Because clearly it's not about the poll numbers, and I think John Wood Jr. has put his point on on a significant point here, which is that these poll numbers, we can talk about them all day long. I really don't think Donald Trump is losing sleep. To quote Jay-Z, he got 99 problems, but poll numbers ain't one of them. I digress for now. You're listening to John Wood Jr. on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Black House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries warned Republicans they'll regret reopening the January 6th probe.
Donald Trump and House Republicans are now determined to whitewash that day that will always live in infamy.
Jeffries tapped Eric Swalwell to lead Democrats on the new subcommittee, joined by Jasmine Crockett and Jared Moskowitz. The black man seen in a viral Jacksonville, Florida traffic stop video is suing the city and the arresting officer. Will McNeil Jr.'s lawyers also want a DOJ investigation after video showed him punched and dragged from his car during the February stop. And Joe Budden is on a potential witness list in Megan Thee Stallion's upcoming defamation trial. Blogger Milagro Grams faces claims she spread false stories during Tory Lanez' 2022 case. The trial begins November 17th. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers were 3 outs away from a combined no-hitter Monday night against Colorado. They didn't get the no-hitter, but they won the game 3-1. Reliever Tanner Scott gave up a leadoff double in the ninth to ruin what would have been the 25th no-hitter in the Dodgers franchise history. Tyler Glasnow held Colorado hitless in the first 7 innings. Things are not looking good for the UCLA football program and head coach Deshaun Foster. UCLA is 0-2 after losing to Utah and UNLV by a combined score of 73-33. The Bruins trailed Utah 20-0 before losing 43-10. They were down 23-0 at UNLV before losing 30-23. Foster needs to do something about the Bruins' slow starts. These are the kind of mental notes an athletic director or a school president make when evaluating coaches. UCLA is at home Friday night against New Mexico. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, they've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself. Shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So, I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called Select Quote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with Select Quote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call Select Quote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know the United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time? Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgan's. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Want to extend that barbershop shave at home? Try Gillette Skin Guard, designed specifically for men who battle shaving irritation. With this irritation defense bar, 2 comfort blades, and a touch of aloe, it helps avoid shaving bumps and irritation, leaving me looking my best. I find it perfect for when I need a clean, fresh look, especially between barber visits. Tailored for black men, it's easy to use and offers the comfort my skin deserves. Stay confident between cuts with Gillette Skin Guard.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with John Wood Jr. I've said many times, sometimes the best of these conversations actually happens off the air. It turns out that my colleague here in L.A., Dominique Dupreme, was still in the building, and we just had a spirited debate amongst the three of us. It wasn't just me and John. It was John, me, Dominique, all of us in this conversation about what really is animating and motivating Donald Trump, what he really does care about. We were having this conversation. Let me reprise some of this on the air. We got into a conversation about gerrymandering, which we've had any number of times on this program, and I said to John and to Dominique that my read is that gerrymandering is the most significant issue that we're up against. Again, we were talking earlier about Steve Bannon's strategy of flooding the zone. Flood the zone, flood the zone. They're doing that every day. But the thing that concerns me, I think, more than anything else at this moment, as I keep saying on this program, is this issue of gerrymandering. Because we could, in theory, still be living, John Wood Jr., in a democracy, but under rigid one-party rule. And that ain't really democracy. And to the extent that we were laughing earlier about whether Donald Trump thinks he's going to run again or is going to try to run again, if you flood the zone or flood the nation's capital, more to the point, with Republicans, and Republicans outnumber Democrats by a significant margin, not the marginal lead or victory they have in Congress right now. But if these Republican numbers go up, and we were just talking about the fact that if you play this thing all the way out, there's no way that the blue states win over the red states if the red states keep doing what we saw happen in Florida and in Texas, and today in Missouri. We had Emmanuel Cleaver, black congressman, 11 terms out of Missouri, on the program yesterday. They're going to redraw him, redraw the lines in Missouri. He's going to be after 11 terms out of a seat after today. And we draw the lines, and he's going to be in a district that doesn't exist anymore, essentially. So the point is, if Republicans keep doing what they're doing, the blue states can't keep up. And if you play this thing all the way out, in the end, the red states still win. That may be what Donald Trump's end and aim is, so that if he does in fact decide he wants to run or will try to find a way to run a few years from now, he has all the cover that he needs between Congress and a U.S. Supreme Court that's giving this guy everything he wants. Does any of that make sense?
Well, it all makes sense. And, it's a concerning package. Gerrymandering is a historic problem, of course. Both sides are guilty of gerrymandering.
No question.
I'm sure Dominique can jump back in the room. She'd say Republicans much more guilty than Democrats. But
she'd be right.
But Democrats are guilty of it too. I'm not an expert on the history of gerrymandering, but I do know it's a bipartisan issue. However, the way in which Trump is leaning into it Governor Abbott in Texas to start with, it is very blatant. It seems it feels very blatant, right? And it feels like a way of structuring a built-in advantage in Congress, such that one does not need, to your point, be quite as concerned about what the poll numbers in aggregate might say, because again, you sort of built in you've built in a surplus number of seats. But then, of course, it also puts us in this terrible place of ugly precedents. So Gavin Newsom here in California is now And Dominic was giving me some details that I didn't know about the legislation, but Newsom is hoping to essentially minimize what is already a very small Republican contingency delegation in the state of California along similar lines as a response to Governor Abbott in Texas. Now look, I've been a vice chairman of the LA County Republican Party. I don't like the idea of California being a one-party state any more than I like the idea of the United States Congress being a one-party, federal legislature. But then it puts us in this place to where suddenly we're in open political warfare by rejiggering the sort of mechanisms of the system where you've got gerrymandering across the map in the country. But bottom line is the math suggests that the Republicans win that battle.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's actually a fight that the president probably wants. Introducing the question is Newsom sort of playing into the president's hand. But to zoom out, though, it's just, again, just going back to the pattern. In every direction of governance, it seems that the administration is testing the reaches of their power. In the courts, with Congress, as we already pointed out, with gerrymandering and so forth, in terms of the deployment of National Guard personnel in different states and cities, of course, the nation's capital itself, Washington, D.C., in terms of their ability to deploy force to essentially, execute international criminals, suspected international criminals and drug traffickers and so forth, but without trial, right, in a way that sort of, dismisses the imperative of due process in such situations. And, perhaps you can say that the Trump administration is abiding where the courts seek to rein in their excesses, although some people would even push back against that claim. But it's the flood the zone strategy applied in all directions because the courts themselves, and this sort of gets back to a little bit of what Ezra Klein was talking about on his podcast the other day, the courts themselves have begun to concede more and more to the administration.
No question.
Right, such that in the early months of the administration, they were sort of strictly upholding some norms that the administration was pushing against unsuccessfully. But, the power of persistence is real with President Trump. And now with the success that they're having in the courts and all of these other areas, it does seem like a dramatic rearrangement of the fundamentals of power.
I would draw one line here about the courts. The lower courts have been, all over the map in terms of this administration and the things they've attempted to do. So I would just draw that line. It's the lower courts have given us some reason to believe. It is the Supreme Court that continues to rescue Donald Trump. And if ever, if your choice is to be dealing with the lower courts or the Supreme Court when it comes to your rescue, then obviously you want the Supreme Court to come to your rescue. It is the Supreme Court. Right. It is the High Court for a reason. But they keep coming to Donald Trump's rescue, including on this most recent ruling that we saw yesterday. The Supreme Court has lifted the restrictions here in L.A. on these immigration raids. So now they can go back once again to conducting these indiscriminate arrests here in the city of L.A. It's another victory for Donald Trump. The lower courts had stopped this. Here comes the Supreme Court rescuing Donald Trump once again. Miles, give me the audio of Karen Bass. Karen Bass and a couple of local Latino leaders yesterday had something to say about this when this decision came forward. But again, the Supreme Court has lifted the restrictions here in L.A. On these immigration raids. They can once again go around indiscriminately arresting people. Take a listen to Karen Bass and a couple of, again, local Latino leaders here in L.A. yesterday.
I dissent. We all dissent. Because from the beginning, we have known that Los Angeles has been used as a test case for total dominance and unchecked power by the federal government. We have been used as a test case to begin to normalize military intervention and takeover of our cities.
Today's Supreme Court conservative majority handed down a ruling many of us feared but expected. By siding with the Trump administration, this court's majority has revealed itself as highly prejudicial and has further empowered authoritarianism in this country. Immigration agents are now being given the power to profile, stop, detain, and arrest people because of the color of their skin, the language they speak, or the work that they do. In doing so, they have effectively legalized racial profiling and, by extension, racial discrimination.
It's been about who they don't want to see in this country anymore. And they're starting with Latinos, and they will be coming for others. Recognize that. They're already taking citizens. It doesn't matter. Wake up.
So there's some sound from a number of local leaders alongside Mayor Karen Bass today responding to this decision by the Supreme Court to let Trump and his National Guard and military troops conduct these indiscriminate raids in L.A. One final point on this, and I'll let John Wood Jr. respond when we come forward here. Donald Trump has claimed that Chicago is the world's most dangerous city. That's a quote from Donald Trump. Chicago is the world's most dangerous city. I've made this point time and time again on this program. Not true. All the cities that Donald Trump has on his target list, L.A., D.C., Baltimore, Chicago, New Orleans, cities I've said 1,000 times that just happen to have black mayors. The 4 cities where the murder rate is highest are all in Republican-led states. So I'm giving you this data so the next time you hear Donald Trump tell that lie, you know the real answer. Chicago is not the world's most dangerous city. In this country, the 4 cities that have the highest crime rates right now are all in red states. Jackson, Mississippi, Birmingham, Alabama, St. Louis, Missouri, where they're taking out Emmanuel Cleaver today, and Memphis, Tennessee. Tennessee, Missouri, Alabama, and Mississippi. Those are the states, red states, with the cities that have the worst crime right about now. So Donald Trump needs to stop that lie that Chicago or Baltimore or L.A. or New Orleans has crime worse than any other cities that are in red states. I digress on that for now. You'll hear from John Wood Jr. when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte. Let's preserve black land stories before they're lost forever. I want to personally invite you to be a part of something historic. As journalist in residence for the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, I've joined forces with powerhouse attorney and social justice champion George Fothery, the man who helped make history by delivering justice to the Bruce family in Manhattan Beach, securing the first known return of land unjustly taken from black owners by a local government. That victory was monumental, but it was just the beginning. For generations, black families have acquired land through grit, faith, and determination, only to lose it through violence, legal loopholes, forced sales, and systematic racism. What's been taken goes far beyond dirt and deeds. It's the erasure of wealth, identity, and legacy. That's why we've launched the Black Land Lost Narrative Archive Project, a national effort to collect, protect, and preserve the stories of black land lost before they're buried, forgotten, or erased altogether. Because there's power in telling black stories, there is resistance in remembering, and there's justice in being seen and heard. This is where you come in. We're inviting you to be a part of this historic black narrative archive. If you or someone you know has experienced land loss, displacement, or forced property sales, your story deserves to be heard and remembered. Your story belongs in this archive. Your truth matters not just to your family, but to our collective future. Visit blacklandlost.org today. Fill out our simple intake form and add your voice to the National Archive of Remembrance, Resilience, and Reckoning. Let's make these stories live on, not in whispers, but on the record. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Dr. Nicolai Corte, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement. Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
He's a paradigm pioneer.
And the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
Tavis Smiley and my talk radio colleague, John Wood Jr., who happens to host a very good program, an excellent program on my station here in L.A. on the weekends called the Reconstruction Project. On the weekends, and so we are colleagues. But I wanted to have him on today because I'm always interested in taking the temperature of my friends on the other side of the aisle. John Wood Jr. has not been a Donald Trump supporter, so I make that distinction. But I'm still always fascinated to tap into my friends on the right. And we were just talking about the fact there's an article that I was reading last night that in the Washington Post. That makes the point that a new generation of young black conservatives is trying to gain sway with Trump's GOP. So Donald Trump, John made a joke a moment ago, and it wasn't really a joke during the commercial break. Your point about what did you say about Trump and white people versus black people and brown people?
Well, that Trump has lost Trump has lost support politically, but he's lost support with white people.
Exactly.
With black people, black and brown people, he's gained.
Exactly.
Right from election to election.
That is scary. My time is getting tight. You know how this clock works because you host your own show here in L.A. The Supreme Court lifting these restrictions, and now these troops can indiscriminately arrest people again. How do you read that as another rescue by the Supreme Court of Donald Trump?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, one thing I go to is just the fact that I thought that we were deporting violent criminals and clear and present threats to the safety of communities. But now the dragnet seems to have gotten very wide and just seems to be, people working out in front of Home Depot.
That's right. That's right.
And it does strike me as a concerning breach of civil liberties reinforced and supported by the Supreme Court here. I mean, look, I ran for Congress, Tavis. I campaigned on a secure border, and I would be very critical of the Biden administration and many progressives who I don't think gave adequate attention to that problem. Donald Trump has effectively, whatever you think of the means, solved the question of the problem of illegal border crossings, and I actually don't think that that's a bad thing. What I do think is a bad thing, however, is raiding American communities in essence, and I think Karen Bass is effectively right, using the state of California and Los Angeles in particular as a testing ground to sort of see the degree to which they can assert militaristic presence in the state of California. And the Supreme Court, I think, is ratifying some of the tools that they're using to do that, and that's scary.
My question, our remaining moments, is I hear the point you're making. I don't know how you disconnect the two. To the extent that Donald Trump has solved the problem of people running across our borders, and you're right about that. The data is incontrovertible. Yeah. There are fewer people trying to run across these borders right about now because they know what's waiting on them. Yeah. It's that old notion of FAFO, right? So they're not running across the borders right now.
They're trying to find out.
Exactly. They're trying to find out. Exactly.
Right.
So he has essentially at the moment solved that problem. I'm putting this radio, you can't see me. I'm putting the word solve in air quotes. He solved that problem, but you can't disconnect that from the means. You're criticizing the means, but you're celebrating the fact that he solved the problem. How do you disconnect the two? Hold on. I'll give you the final word when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Yeah, right.
For all the freedom-loving folk, this is Tavis Smiley.
I feel like
KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found BenefitsCheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. BenefitsCheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada. Member FDIC.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind: to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my two sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted timeshare cancellation company in the United States. Fortune magazine even recognized us as one of the best places to work. Why? Because we genuinely care. In fact, some of our former clients were so moved by their experience working with us, they joined our team so they could help others to timeshare freedom. If you're stuck in a timeshare, give us a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-687-7979. That's 800-687-7979. 800-687-7979.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and John Wood Jr. for the next 4 minutes here. So how do you decouple those things? That is to say, your celebration of Donald Trump solving the problem of folk running across our borders, but you can't disconnect that, in my mind, from the way he's gone about doing it, which I find reprehensible, and I think you do too.
Yeah, well, I mean, in reality, you can't disconnect those two things. I mean, I would have liked to have seen a circumstance in which President Trump, put forward an assertive face on the question of border security and said, don't come here, because if you come here, you're going to get sent right back. And truthfully, I never even had a problem with the idea of a wall if it worked. I'm not sure a wall is actually a meaningful solution, but point is, I just felt like that was a problem that needed to be solved. But the solving of that problem has joined stream with the aggressive penetration into actual American communities, rounding up people who should not be a priority for deportation. And I think just tearing at the fabric of American communities to begin with. But you also can't disconnect that circumstance from the fact that I think Democrats were far too lax on border security, and it's part of what politically and socially provided the opening for these means and tactics to begin with. I know we could talk about that all day long.
No, I grant you that last point. I grant you that. And it wasn't until Joe Biden discovered he's going to be in a rematch with Donald Trump that he started to change his tune on immigration.
At which point he had no credibility left.
On that, I grant you, we agree on that one.
Yeah.
I got 2 minutes left. I'll give it to you. As I mentioned earlier, John Wood Jr. is not just a colleague, but he's a columnist for USA Today. And I'm always pleased to read his pieces in USA Today. Whether I agree with everything he says or not is not the point. He's a black man with a column in USA Today, one of the most read papers in the country, and I love reading his stuff. I saw the piece you wrote about the Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
I never got a chance to discuss that on my show, but in the 90 seconds I have left, just top line the piece you wrote about this furor at Cracker Barrel about their logo.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the logo was changed to Cracker Barrel by corporate leadership. Cracker Barrel is a chain that's been around for decades and decades. It has a traditional kind of Southern nostalgia to the restaurant design and to the logo. Shows an old man in a rocking chair leaning against a Cracker Barrel, sort of evokes some sort of old South in a positive, I think, kind of wholesome way. But the new CEO came in and said, let's change this to something clean and sterile, get rid of the old man, get rid of the rocking chair and so forth. And the piece is really just about the transactional relationship that corporate America has to the heritage of America, right? So long as it serves as a means to an end and profit and so forth, they hold on to it. But it's like these brands sometimes have a relationship to things that people actually value, and you disrespect the American people when you discard that. I call out Target in that piece too, in relationship to their disavowing of their, as a part of getting rid of DEI, the relationship they had with nonprofit organizations run by people of color doing good work in the community, because they were celebrating our heritage so long it was politically popular with the prevailing administration, but threw it out the window when the winds changed. It's a problem across the board to me with respect to corporate America.
As I recall, though, that Cracker Barrel story boomeranged on that CEO. Didn't they go back to the original logo?
Well, they did, because the outrage and the boycott, they misread their market. They misread their customer base.
You got to read the room.
Right?
You got to read the room.
You got to know your people.
I saw that. And it always fascinates me when for all their intellect and for all their brilliance and for all their data research, they make decisions that just fall flat.
They spent millions of dollars to lose hundreds of millions.
Remember when Coke tried to change the recipe years ago?
Yeah, right.
See,
exactly.
it cracks me up, man. Leave it alone. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. John Wood Jr., good to have you on. We'll do it again, my friend. All the best to you.
Yes, sir.
That's our first hour. 2 hours to go on Tavis Smiley. Glad to have you with us.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Black House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries warned Republicans they'll regret reopening the January 6th probe.
Donald Trump and House Republicans are now determined to whitewash that day that will always live in infamy.
Jeffries tapped Eric Swalwell to lead Democrats on the new subcommittee, joined by Jasmine Crockett and Jared Moskowitz. The black man seen in a viral Jacksonville, Florida traffic stop video is suing the city and the arresting officer. Will McNeil Jr.'s lawyers also want a DOJ investigation after video showed him punched and dragged from his car during the February stop. And Joe Budden is on a potential witness list in Megan Thee Stallion's upcoming defamation trial. Blogger Milagro Grams faces claims she spread false stories during Tory Lanez 2022 case. The trial begins November 17th. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative